In this video, we're going to talk about the mind of an avoidant during no contact. It can be a mysterious thing because they suddenly seem like they don't care, and it's a horrible feeling being on the other end of that, but actually it's rarely the full truth. So we're going to dissect what they might be actually thinking and feeling, even though they might look like they don't care. Before I get into this video, I'd like to let you know that I've got my Heartbreak Healers Club. Until the end of July, there's a £50 discount. So basically, there's about 24 hours left before that discount code expires. It's July 50, which means that you can get £50 off the 4-week membership. It's such a beautiful space where you're going to meet other people going through similar things just like you. You will not feel alone anymore. And I'll be giving you prompts and questions, and we'll have conversations that help you heal and process so that you can move forward and feel like you again. And if you'd like to do something a bit different, something every day just for you, I've got my 30-day X Recovery Detox Challenge, which starts on the 1st of August. So again, in 2 days' time, it's only £30, and it's going to be a beautiful month of doing something every day to help you feel like you're moving forward, processing and letting go. And you can find all the information about those things in the description below. Okay, so the mind of an avoidant during no contact. I know how horrible it is. I've been there before, where you've had this really intense connection and you felt really special to someone for a period of time, and then things go wrong, they start pulling away, or suddenly they disappear and they go absolutely silent, and the no contact feels brutal. And on one hand, you're wanting them to come back to you and talk to you and express their feelings, and they just don't seem to do it. They seem to absolutely get on with their life and seem totally okay while you're struggling. So much of the time, the pattern with the anxious and the avoidant is that the anxious one usually reaches out and closes the gap. The avoidant does this thing where they pull away, and they've done it all their life. And what that does is it leaves room for other people to fill in the gap. So that's what they're expecting. They expect other people to close the gap. Now, this is not an invitation to do this, because if you do this, you don't heal and they don't heal, right? There needs to be a change in the dance. But secretly, when you don't reach out, when you actually don't close the gap, they start to think, oh, what happened? Maybe they actually moved on. Maybe they don't care. Maybe they're going to find someone better than me, which is their secret deep fear, right? Because people who are avoidant fear intimacy, fear being seen, fear being rejected, just like people who are anxious do too, but they express it in a different way. They do have these fears just like you, but their predominant coping strategy is suppression. They suppress it, they dismiss their own feelings, they avoid it. And if you think about that, if they're doing that for themselves, how on earth do you think they would have the capacity to hold space for yours? It's a really good question to ask yourself. If they can't hold space for their own discomfort, their own fears, their own anxieties, how do you think they would have the space to be there for yours? They need to go through the journey of learning how to be with this discomfort. One of the things that can happen in no contact is that once it's gone on for a while, they start thinking, this is different. I really thought that they were going to talk to me. I really thought they were going to reach out. On some level, even if they didn't think it consciously, that's what they expected, because they've had so much experience of pulling away and people moving closer and pulling away and people moving closer. It's been a survival strategy, but it doesn't work for relationships. So that isn't the answer. That isn't what you should do to contact them, unless you're doing it for you. The time when I say that it's okay for you to break no contact is if you really are stuck and you cannot move forward, and you want to move on, you want to be able to move forward, and on some level you're waiting and waiting and waiting and wondering if you should message them, or you don't know what to do, and it's keeping you in this horrible purgatory place, right? There has to be a time limit where you allow yourself to actually message them at the end of the day, because otherwise you just get stuck in this fear of rejection. A lot of people wrongly use no contact to actually get the other person to reach out in the end, so that they'll break, so that they will finally chase you instead, right? This doesn't usually work in the long run, because as soon as they get your attention and you reply and there's a conversation and they start sharing that they miss you and you miss them, they start start to feel less anxiety, less fear of losing you. So they go right back into their old patterns and the vicious cycle starts again. And we don't want that. And again, I don't want this to come across as information that gives you ways of manipulating someone, because this is not what we're doing. Once my therapist said to me, as a golden rule, are you doing the thing that you're doing to try to get something out of the other person? And if you are, just pause and don't do it, because it could be leading into manipulation, which is what a lot of people use no contact for, because they've seen so many videos on YouTube that say, if you don't contact them, they're going to contact you. It's true that no contact is a good way of allowing space for both people to realize what you've lost, to reflect, to process. But you have to bear in mind that if the avoidant is going to come back stronger, then you also have to come back stronger. And this is the other thing that the avoidant might do during no contact, is they might have a fantasy version of you. This is when they really, really start missing you, and they start thinking, oh, I remember when this happened and we laughed about this and these good memories. And they might start thinking of you as less emotionally demanding in their mind, as they might put it, or needy or whatever. And they imagine you as the way that they want you to be, rather than the way that you actually are, which is someone who has emotional needs. And they, on some level, some avoidants do this thing where they expect the other person to come back calmer and, easier to be around, without actually doing any work on themselves to address their own avoidance, their own fear of intimacy, which puts all of the blame and the focus and the responsibility on you to change it, which is not what we want, is it? We want both people to be able to work on themselves. I'll just say that again, that you're not needy, you just have emotional needs, okay? So in an ideal situation, in some situations, avoidance will actually feel the loss of the relationship over time in no contact, reflect on their part in it, maybe even go to therapy, which is what some avoidants do actually do when they realize, oh my God, I've been through this so many times before, the common denominator is me. They end up going to therapy and being able to reflect and say, I have been showing up in this way. I've seen it before. I have actually seen this happen before, where avoidants have realized, I completely pushed that person away and I didn't mean to. This is when they can go into a deep regret. And like I've said in other videos, it can take years for this to happen. And it can take years for an avoidant to pluck up the courage to actually say anything about what they've been feeling. So essentially, if we're going to wrap it up, just because the avoidant is not showing you that they care, just because they're not reaching out, just because they're seemingly getting on with their life, maybe they're even with somebody else, it does not mean that you are not special to them. It does not mean that they haven't thought about you. It doesn't mean anything about your connection, really. It just shows you their capacity and their way of dealing with it. But it also doesn't show you what they might truly be feeling about you underneath the surface. And I don't want this to sound like a way for you to kind of hold on to any false hope about this, because remember, in all of my videos, what I'm trying to teach you is that you do deserve to be with someone who is emotionally present, who is ready to do the work. And you actually have to have this motto in your mind, which is, I have to be with someone who's ready to do the work. Otherwise it won't work, right? The work works when you do it, when both people do it. But the fact is that a lot of avoidant people don't want to do it. So even if they're thinking and feeling all of these things and they have got this connection to you, they can't access the level of intimacy that you want in a relationship unless they're actually willing to stand up and say, I was wrong. It's one of the hardest things to do in a relationship, actually, to admit fault, to admit where you might have got something wrong, to admit that you have to say sorry about some things. But it's the bravest thing and the best thing that we can be able to do in relationships in order to have true closeness and connection and repair, right? So, like I say, in essence, they're going to be thinking about it. They're going to be aware that you're in no contact. They're going to be aware that you haven't reached out. They're going to feel the loss of the connection, and they're going to, maybe ruminate on it a bit, maybe miss you, maybe want to talk to you. but do what they normally do, which is suppress it, right? Get on with their life, distract themselves, fill the void with other things. So I know that it looks harsh. It's a harsh kind of picture when you look at it like that. But the truth is not always as it seems. Just like when you're looking at social media and you see all these happy posts and people look happy, and then you find out, oh my God, they were really miserable and I didn't know, right? You don't know the whole picture. So don't take it as face value, because you really don't know what you don't know. So especially with social media, really try not to make meanings out of it. I know how triggering it can be when you see someone looking happy and free and look, they've got their life figured out, they're going on holiday, they've got everything sorted, and you're just miserable and missing them and stuff. That's not the whole picture. People post a curated version of their life. They do not post the nights where they've sat and scrolled and obsessed about photos of you. They don't post that. So you're not going to see it on social media. So actually don't use social media as a gauge as to how this other person is doing and how much they think or feel about you. Okay, so just because the avoidant doesn't show it doesn't mean they don't feel it. Just because they come back at some point doesn't mean they're healed. You need to see real accountability, real transformation within themselves, and consistent, proven, actual effort to show you that they can be an emotionally safe partner. Now, what are you going to do? Because we're all about, let's think about what they might do and what they need to do. But you also need to be ready and willing, because one of the things that can happen is, you've got to be careful what you wish for sometimes, because sometimes the avoidant, who is so distant and emotionally far away, can come back and say, I'm ready to be emotionally present. And that freaks you out because you were not ready. You hadn't done the work on yourself because you've been so used to emotionally unavailable, distant people that when someone wants to be present, you're like, oh, this feels weird. And now they're shining a light on you and your own avoidance. So this is one of the things that can, ironically, happen. And you've got to be ready for it. You've got to be ready to say, no, actually, I don't want this distant figure. I want actually presence. And what would that feel like? What would that be like? And really play with the idea of being with someone who is ready to be emotionally present with you. And this is one of the things that we can explore in the Heartbreak Healers Club, in my one-to-one coaching. And we're going to talk about it as well in the 30-day ex-recovery detox challenge, which starts on the 1st of August. So we've only got like 24 hours to use, first of all, the £50 discount on the Heartbreak Healers, which ends at the end of July. And then we've also got the 30-day detox challenge, which starts on the 1st of August. So you've got a bit of time to sign up to those things. The Heartbreak Healers is going to be ongoing and ongoing and ongoing, but it just will be a bit more expensive after July. So if you want any more information about those things or how you can work with me one-to-one, you can find out all the information in the links below, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.